There are a lot of hurdles you have to overcome to find screenwriting success, but what you don't realize is that some of those hurdles are not hurdles. They are forks in the road. They're choices that you make that determine your path, and they may, much to your disappointment, lead you down the wrong road, which is actually something that happened to me when I was starting out, and I'll circle back to that in a moment. But here's what I mean about the fork and not the hurdle. The hurdle is when you finally realize there is no one way to write a screenplay except for the way that results in a good story well told. I mean, that's just a hurdle. But if you say, yeah, but then I don't need to learn all the other ways that other people write a screenplay, okay, you've just sent yourself down the wrong road, and this is why. Most screenwriters make a living being hired to write a story that they did not conceive of. Someone else has an idea, they've read something of yours, your calling card script perhaps, and they loved it. They've met with you and they know you're not weird and that your head is screwed on straight, and they thought you would be a great person to write their idea, and they want to hire you. And that's great, you think, I'm in. And then they give you a 2-page treatment and want a 10-page outline in 2 weeks, and you don't know where to start. And that's because you never bothered to even learn what a treatment is, because you thought, well, that just doesn't work for me, and I don't really need to learn it because I don't use it. You took the wrong fork in the road. And it's true, there's no one real way to write a screenplay, but you still have to learn the process, because if you really want to make a go of this thing, you're going to be expected to know what the process is. You're going to be expected to deliver things like treatments and outlines and polished drafts. So yes, you need to learn what works best for you, but if you don't know how to maneuver in the general process of writing a screenplay, you're in trouble. If someone gave you a 2-page treatment, could you turn that into a full script? If someone gave you an outline, could you turn it into a draft? If someone gave you a first draft but wanted a complete overhaul and they had a list of notes for you to incorporate on the next pass, could you? And yes, once you've been around the racetrack a few times, you can kind of lay out some parameters for how you work and what works best for you when you're dealing with producers and executives. That maybe you found it best to go from treatment straight into draft, for example. But you have to earn the right to get there and have to have proven yourself by having churned out enough quality scripts that people trust you can do the work. And this is the downside of advice from some writers who are already higher up on the food chain telling new writers to just write it. But that's because that's what they do, and they've been doing it long enough to know how to do it. But you don't know. And you end up going down a wrong road, a road I myself went down. And then I had to backtrack and unlearn a whole bunch of stuff. And I don't want you making the same mistakes that I made. At least be creative and make new ones. When I was starting out, I actually made 2 big mistakes. One is I thought that story and storytelling were the same thing. That if I had a complete story, that it would, of course, be well told. And I've talked a lot about the difference between those 2 things on this channel, and I'll link a video at the end if you're interested in better understanding the difference, so I'm not going to pull that one apart right now. But I do want to pull apart my mistake of messing up the process of writing a screenplay. And we were actually talking about this in my coaching program, The Navigator, recently, and why learning the process of writing a screenplay matters. And the mistake I made, and a lot of writers make, is I started the actual writing too soon. What I mean is I opened up a screenplay template too soon and started writing actual scenes. And that's what you hear most from established writers. Just write the story. Who cares how? Get it down on the page. And honestly, they mean well. They do. Writers have a desire to see other writers succeed. We're not really competing against one another, and we want to help others out. It's one reason why I have this channel. But what some established writers often forget is, well, that they've forgotten that it took them a while to inherently learn the process. They didn't know the process when they started. They had to learn to write a treatment, to write an outline, how to draft, how to revise, how to improve scenes, how to arc characters. But now, okay, many of them know it inherently, and they don't have to worry about how to arc a character because they already know, and they just instinctively do it now. And they can easily find the places in their script where it isn't working. But you aren't working on instincts. Not yet. So when an established writer says, just go write, what you really need to hear is them saying, learn the craft and figure out the process, and then go and write the screenplay. And I hear the objections from the peanut gallery already. But Jake, that's the best way to learn, just by sitting down and trying to do it. But that was my mistake. I thought, I'll just sit and write one. I had a master's degree in English with an emphasis in storytelling. I know what I'm doing. But this is like telling a brand new driver to get in a car and just go start driving on the highway. It'll be fine, you'll figure it out, just go do it. I mean, none of us would want to be on that road, but you think as a new screenwriter that that's the way to do it. Sorry, Skippy, it ain't. 40 years ago when that driver was on the farm driving tractors and can learn to drive by driving in a truck and heading down the dirt road where the only thing they had to dodge was cattle and tumbleweeds, okay, yeah, learn to drive by driving. And just because that's how they did it doesn't mean that's how you should do it. And it doesn't mean that's the best way to learn, which is the argument you often hear from established writers. Well, that's not how I learned to write, and you can be like me too. The best way to learn is to practice. That's true, but to practice in an intentional way. There's not one right way to practice the craft of screenwriting, just like there's no one right way to write a screenplay. But you do want to be intentional if you're serious about finding success. You've got to be intentional about how you learn. And you have to, absolutely must, learn the process of writing a screenplay and know how to navigate within that process. That doesn't mean you have to use it, but that does mean you have to know what it is and know how to navigate through it. That you spend time planning your story and making sure the story is right long before you actually start writing and trying to tell the story, because that's the trap. Jump into writing to figure out the story. That's the wrong way. First, figure out the story and then tell it in the best way possible. If you're just a hobbyist and only plan on screenwriting being a hobby and maybe someday you win a contest or happen to sell something, then cool, sit down and write. Just try to figure it out. Put your typewriter on the screenwriting freeway and figure it out while dodging all the semis and idiot drivers. But if you're serious, you've got to be intentional. And you've got to be intentional about learning the tools of the craft. That's part one, and you've got to be intentional about applying those tools in the right circumstances while you're practicing the process of writing a screenplay in a way that you'll be expected to do professionally. So you've got to learn the tools, and you got to learn how to apply the tools in the process. It's two parts. And if you want to do this professionally, then you have to practice in the same way a professional executes. You plan your story, you write it. Now, how you plan it doesn't matter, but you got to know what the process is. And if you want to work with me, I'd love it. I mean, that'd be great, but that's not for everyone. But whether you're a hobbyist or curious or serious about the craft, there are some links below that can help you out. So if you're a hobbyist, Jumpstart is a 30-day set of emails that are writing prompts to help you get in the habit of working on the craft of screenwriting every day. 100% free. It's an email every day for 30 days. Just use the link below and go and sign up. But if you're not just a hobbyist and are professionally curious about screenwriting, the Essentials tier of the Screenwriting Fast Track will get you started. It will introduce you to many of the tools you have at your disposal as a screenwriter. And the more you move toward the serious end of the scale, there are other tiers of opportunities in the Fast Track that give you more tools and more resources if you want them. But if you're really serious and you want to make a go of screenwriting because you've written a couple of scripts, you're beginning to be familiar with the process, but you haven't totally figured it out. Not yet. And you want to be held accountable for your writing and your progress and get regular feedback on your writing. Maybe you're ready for the Navigator. And the link below lets you book a free call with me and we can figure out if you're ready to go down that road. If not, I'll tell you. I won't blow smoke, but I'd love to talk with you, and I'm opening up a few more times in my schedule to be able to talk with you over the next couple of months. And if you're part of the Navigator, you also get access to the premium tier of the Fast Track. So you get access to all the tools you need to learn to find success in the Fast Track, and you begin to hone and discover the process of writing a marketable screenplay in the Navigator. Now, you still have to do the work, of course, but I have no doubt you'll be able to do that because if you're in that group of people, you're serious and driven, and you'll work to find success. And no matter where you're at, the Complete Guide to Story Structure is a great resource, less than the cost of 2 coffees from your favorite coffee shop, and it'll better shape how you see stories and help you understand a little bit better how they work. And as I promised earlier, if you want to learn more about the difference between story and storytelling, watch this. So choose the right road and learn the process of how to write a screenplay. And if you found value, fun buttons. And when you tell a story that matters. See you later.